The wind howled through the misty fjords of the Olympic Peninsula, Washington, rattling the fogged windows of my waterfront cottage as I, Rhea Lang, carefully packed the last of my hand-baked breads into a willow basket. It was November 30, 2025, my 38th birthday, and the stormy sky outside echoed the quiet storm brewing in my chest. For weeks, I'd poured my heart into crafting gifts for my family's Thanksgiving reunion. A loaf of rosemary sourdough from my mother, shaped like her favorite flower, a rye boule from my father, etched with his initials, and a braided challah from my younger brother Silas, infused with herbs from our childhood garden, a nod to our shared baking memories. The phone rang at 5:05 p.m., my mother's name flashing on the screen. I answered, flour-dusted hands trembling, expecting her usual tirade about the feast or table settings. Instead, her voice was frigid, scripted, like a baker discarding a failed batch. "Rhea, we've decided it's best if you don't join us for Thanksgiving this year." A clatter of pots and Silas's laugh, harsh, mocking, and edged with disdain, cut through the line. "No offense, Ray, but it's just less heavy without your bread stories. You get it, right?" Dad's voice rumbled faintly, a reluctant grunt of agreement. Mom pressed on, her tone clipped. "It's not about you, dear. We're keeping it light and cohesive." Light and cohesive. As if I were a dense dough to be discarded, not a daughter, I thought. My grip tightening on the basket, the willow weaving creaking, a faint split forming along the rim. "Why?" I whispered, my voice a fragile crumb against the wind's roar. A pause stretched, thick and deliberate. Then Mom said, "We'll sort it out after the new year." And the line went silent with a cold click. I stood there, the phone still warm against my ear, the unwrapped gifts staring back like silent indictments, the sourdough a mockery, the boule a tribute to a father who'd turned away. No tears came, just a hollow emptiness as if the wind had kneaded the life from my soul. I shoved the basket into a dark corner, beside unused yeast packets and wrapping twine, locking away the proof of my banishment. The question wasn't why they'd done it, but what they'd resolved about me long before that call. A recipe of neglect baked over years. I grew up in a cozy stone cottage in Bellingham, Washington, where the river's misty breath mingled with the aroma of my mother's lavender loaves and Dad's brewing cider. Mom, Fiona Lang, ran an artisan bakery, her warmth drawing locals like bees to honey. Dad, Victor Lang, taught culinary arts at the community college, his classes alive with tales of heritage recipes. Silas, 10 years younger, was the radiant star, curly hair catching the light, a magnetic charm that turned kitchen mishaps into family legends, and a knack for turning failures into stories of innovative flavor. I was Rhea, the quiet one who baked in the pantry, organized the cluttered larder, and dreamed of studying patisserie at the Culinary Institute of America. The favoritism began early, subtle but unyielding. Silas's D in home ec earned a baking outing with Dad. My A in baking science got a distracted, good effort, keep at it. When he burned Mom's oven mitts, they laughed about his fiery passion, buying him new tools. When I won a national baking competition at 26, Mom said, "That's sweet, Rhea, but don't let it overshadow practical skills." I left for community college at 23, funding it with scholarships and selling my baked goods, later enrolling in the Culinary Institute's online program while working as a bakery assistant. Silas stayed home, drifting through food truck gigs, barista shifts, and now a sustainable food vlog with suspicious cash. I never resented his shine. I cherished his energy, seeing it as a yeast to my dough. I drove home for his 28th birthday, planned a bake-off party, covered the ingredients when Mom forgot, and baked him a custom cake as a gift. I sent Dad rare spice blends, helped Mom with bakery accounts during rains, stayed up late editing Silas's vlog recipes. But their holiday cards read, Silas is cooking up Flavor Quest vlog. Rhea's busy in the Olympic Peninsula. Last winter, Silas called distraught over a failed vlog sponsorship, his voice breaking over the phone. I wired him $4,000, no questions asked, and he called me his secret ingredient. Then, on my birthday, he laughed and said, less heavy without your breads. His words a dagger I hadn't anticipated. A week later, I scrolled Instagram seeking a distraction from the ache and stumbled upon their Thanksgiving post. The familiar walnut table, Mom's herb centerpiece, Dad's olive napkins, except I was absent. In my place stood Gemma Rossi, a chic food blogger with a vineyard villa and a massive following. She posed with Silas, arms entwined, Mom glowing beside them with a smile I hadn't seen in years. The caption read, "Blessed by our new blend this Thanksgiving." More photos followed. Gemma baking with Dad, toasting cider with Mom, laughing with Silas by the fire. My absence wasn't just a gap. It was filled, curated, and broadcast for the world to see. I checked our family group chat. Gone. Not muted, wiped clean. Old photos on Mom's profile, my 33rd birthday, Dad's 70th, remained, but I was untagged, a ghost in my own bake. I called Aunt Clara, Dad's sister, who had always tasted my creations. Her voice faltered. Rhea, honey, I thought you were on a baking retreat. That's what Fiona said. I didn't challenge her. The truth crashed down like a collapsed souffle, heavier than her excuse. I hung up staring at the bare wall where our last family photo had hung. Me, Silas, and Dad at the vineyard. Removed weeks ago, my heart sensing the fracture before my mind caught up. I didn't post, didn't text, didn't barge into Bellingham to demand answers. Friends invited me to their Thanksgivings. I declined with a tight smile. My coworker, Luca, offered to crash their dinner with a loaf to rise against them. I chuckled, but said, no yeast needed, just watch me proof. I packed away the holiday decor, string lights with cinnamon sticks, a sculpted bread basket I'd made at 16, handling each piece like a fragile memory of a lost recipe. The gifts stayed buried in the basket. On Thanksgiving, I brewed a solitary cup of ginger tea with honey, sat by my window and watched snow blanket the fjords, the silence a defiant ferment. No music, no calls, just the hearth's low crackle and my steady breath, a rebellion in quietude. I walked the beach later, boots crunching shells, watching families gather around tables, their warmth a stark contrast to my isolation. The world was festive, but I was free, unshackled from their mix. In mid-December, a letter arrived, not from Bellingham, but from Napa Valley, California. A thick vellum envelope bore the embossed mark of Vail and Sterling, attorneys at law. Expecting junk mail, I opened it with hesitation. Dear Miss Rhea Lang, as executor of the estate of Isabella Lang, your presence is requested regarding inheritance matters. Grandma Isabella, my father's mother, whom I believed had passed 13 years ago after a whispered dementia. I called the number, hands trembling. Miss Lang, said a measured voice, attorney Victoria Sterling. Isabella passed on November 17th, 2025. I'm sorry you weren't informed. My breath caught. This year? My family said she died years ago. Sterling's tone softened. Come to Napa. There's more to this canvas. 2 days later, I sat in her sun-drenched office, the vineyard stretching beyond. She handed me a death certificate, Isabella Lang, November 17th, 2025, and an obituary from the Napa Register, listing Fiona, Victor, Silas, but omitting me. Why wasn't I told? I asked, voice fracturing. Sterling slid a velvet-bound will across the desk. Isabella insisted you be contacted privately. She distrusted your family's motives. The will bequeathed me everything. her Napa Valley Vineyard estate with its baking kitchen, a $9.2 million investment portfolio, her recipe archives, and a pantry filled with her unfinished spice blends. Silas received $55,000, my parents a rusted baking tin. A USB drive held a video dated October 2024. Isabella appeared, frail but fierce, her brown eyes piercing the camera. "Rhea, my baked soul," she began, her voice a warm need. "If you're watching, I'm gone, and your family likely hid it. You were my dough, your hands shaping beauty, your quiet strength amid their neglect. Your parents leaned on me for Silas's vlog, took loans against my home without consent, pressured me to fund his dreams. I forgave, but I shielded you. This is yours. Bake your destiny." A second video showed financial statements, loan agreements, her voice steady. "They drained my trust. Rhea never did. She rose her own loaf." I sat, reeling, the room spinning. They hadn't just excluded me from Thanksgiving, they'd concealed her death, her funeral, her love, needing a lie to keep me in the dark. Sterling rested a hand on mine. "Isabella chose you for your resilience." That was the deepest wound. Not the wealth, but the betrayal, a risen lie exposed. I agreed to meet them at a Bellingham diner, neutral ground, not for keys, but to see their masks crumble. I arrived early, securing a booth by the frosted window, the storm outside a silent ally. Mom looked brutal, her coat buttoned to her chin, hands fidgeting with a scarf. Dad's posture slumped, glasses fogged with nervous sweat. Silas sauntered in, leather jacket gleaming, new boots clicking, his smirk fading under my unyielding gaze. They started with small talk, snowfall, the drive. Then Mom pivoted, her voice fragile. "Rhea, there's a mix-up with Isabella's estate. She was confused those last years." Silas cut in, leaning back with a cocky grin. "She loved me most. That will is a clerical error." Dad murmured, "We could divide it fairly, keep the estate in the family, avoid a fuss." I leaned forward, voice low and steady, each word a deliberate need. "Isabella was crystal clear. She saw you borrow against her home, hide her death, erase me from her life. She chose me because I never took what wasn't mine, unlike you." Mom recoiled, her hands trembling. Silas's fists clenched, his confidence visibly cracking. Dad stared at his untouched coffee, his silence a confession. "Rhea, don't be spiteful," Mom pleaded, her voice cracking. I rose, towering over them. Spiteful was letting me think she'd been gone 13 years. Spiteful was Thanksgiving without me, replacing me with Gemma. Silas snapped. "You're no sister if you take this." I met his eyes cold and unyielding. "You chose that when you mocked me on my birthday." I walked out. Their protests, Mom sobs, Dad's stammered pleas, Silas's angry shouts, fading into the storm. Texts flooded my phone. Dad's, "We're still family." Mom's, "You're destroying us." Silas's, "This is unfair." I deleted them all. The rage dissolved into clarity, like mist lifting from the cliffs. I sold Isabella's investments, kept the estate, and moved to Napa Valley. The house smelled of her yeast, old recipe books, and the faint tang of sea air, a canvas of possibility. I transformed her kitchen into Lang Bakes, my bakery, its walls lined with her recipes and my new creations. My first commission was a bread line for an orphanage, the second a pastry series for a women's co-op, each bake a tribute to Isabella's vision. I hired Luca as my creative director, his vibrant energy balancing my focus, and together we built a team. At night, I baked Isabella's unfinished recipes, her voice a whisper in my mind. "Create, Rhea, rise your truth." This Thanksgiving, I hosted in my mansion, not in Bar Harbor, but a new sanctuary. Luca brought challah, his family's recipe. Neighbor Maria brought churros, her spices filling the air. Friends, artists, musicians, a diverse tapestry of souls filled the table with laughter, mismatched plates, and stories. No turkey, just lanterns casting a warm glow, a cello quartet playing softly, the windows steaming with warmth. I set Isabella's photo on the mantel, us at her loom, both beaming, no one else in the frame, a silent testament to her choice. Silas emailed asking for his $20,000, his tone entitled. I forwarded it to Thornton, who handled it with a legal letter. Mom sent a handwritten note pleading for family harmony. I left it unopened, its seal unbroken. Dad called, left no message. I didn't need their words. Langbakes grew. 8 clients, then 15, then a city contract for a park. The Brownstown's door bore a brass plaque. Rhea Lang, Baker. Isabella's gift wasn't just money. It was proof I'd always been enough. They thought they'd cropped me out, but I drew a new picture, one they'd never fit. My birthday wasn't a ban. It was my beginning. If you've been quietly replaced, drop one word below.